Assalamu alaikum everyone. So in this class I'm going to discuss one complete question, A-Level Economics March 2025 exam series, and this is paper 4 of A2 Level Economics, and this is question number 5. And question says that with the help of a diagram, evaluate the effectiveness of the use of expenditure switching policies to reduce a current account deficit on balance of payment. Right, so you can stop the video, read the question carefully, right? So after that, listen to the explanation that I'm providing you right now. Okay, so first of all, you have to cater for the 3 assessment objectives. So what are those 3 assessment objectives? First of all, so this is question number 5, and you can just mind map the answer first, then you can start writing about that. So you have to write about assessment objective 1, that is knowledge and understanding, and then you have another assessment objective, that is assessment objective 2, that is analysis, and the third assessment objective is evaluation. And evaluation carries 6 marks, and assessment objective 1 and 2 collectively carry 14 marks, or you can divide them into 7 marks and 7 marks. So this is how you can mind map your answer. So how to write answer to this question? First of all, you have to give knowledge. For that, read the statement of question and identify all the economic terms that are given in this question, and there may be some relevant terms that are at the background of this question, but they are not apparently you can't see them here. So first of all, we can talk about balance of payment, right? So balance of payment is an economic term that you have to explain, and then you can talk about current account, and you can talk about current account deficit, and then you can identify expenditure switching policy by defining them, and this will be the part of assessment objective 1. So this is assessment objective 1, part of assessment objective 1, this is part of assessment objective 1, and this is also the part of assessment objective 1. So what balance of payment is? So you have to define it. Balance of payment is the summary of all economic transactions of a country with the rest of the world, and it has multiple states or positions such as surplus, deficit, or equilibrium. Surplus balance of payment is when earning from the export of goods and services and other economic transactions is more than the payments for international transactions. So you are earning more and spending less. That will be surplus balance of payment. And deficit occurs when inflow of money into the country is less than the outflow of money from the country. And mainly in current account, deficit occurs when we talk about trade in goods, trade in services, current transfers, and income flows. So current account deficit is when inflow of money into the country against trade in goods, services, current transfer, and income flows is lesser than the payments that are made against these economic activities or economic transactions. So deficit is inflow of money is lesser than the outflow of money. Inflow of money into the country is lesser than the outflow of money from the country. So that is current account deficit. And what does current account mean? You have to explain that as well. Current account is the part of balance of payment that records 4 types of transactions. One is called trade in goods. I'm writing TG for trade in goods. It is also known as visible trade. Secondly, we talk about trade in services, that is also known as invisible trade. Then the third component is income flows, and the fourth component is current transfers, right? So current transfers are the inflow of money into the country and outflow of money from the country against transactions that have no corresponding exchange of goods and services, such as donations, aid, or other like transactions that have no like monetary reward against that. Okay, so what should you write in assessment objective 1? Further you have to write about expenditure switching policies, and you can say these are the policies designed by the government to switch consumer expenditure from imported goods towards the locally produced goods that can help to correct balance of payment as well. So you have to talk about expenditure switching policies, right? So what are the expenditure switching policies? Expenditure switching policies, as I told you earlier, are the policies that switch expenditure of the consumer from imports to the locally produced goods. And these policies include further two policies. One is called protectionism, and the second one is devaluation of currency. Protectionism include like tariff quota, embargo, red tape. These are the methods of protectionism. And devaluation of currency is when government deliberately reduces the value of currency against other currencies to make exports cheaper, right? And it happens in fixed exchange rate system. So this is the part of knowledge. You have to write everything that I was like talking about here. And now assessment objective 2 starts here, and now you have to start connecting the given variables in the question. So what are the given variables? Like expenditure switching policies, then like current account of balance of payment deficit, and like how expenditure switching policies can reduce current account deficit. So first of all, you will have to explain the relationship between expenditure switching policies and current account deficit, right? So expenditure switching policies are the policies that are adopted by the government to like decrease imports and like make people consume locally goods more. So expenditure switching policies are further divided into protectionism. And protectionism mean the methods or ways that government uses to cut down imports by making them expensive or making them difficult to import sometimes. So protectionism include like number 1 is tariff. Tariff is a form of tax that is imposed on imported goods, and when government imposes tariff on imported goods, they will get expensive. And you can make a simple diagram for like showing the impact on volume of imports. And this is origin point. On X we have quantity of imports, and this is demand of imports. And on Y we have the price of imports, right? Price of imports. Okay, so this is like supply of imports. This is supply of imports. Demand and supply of imports intersect each other at point A, where quantity of imports is Q and price of imported goods is P. If government imposes like tariff, that is indirect tax, it will reduce supply of imported goods. So supply curve will move from SM to SM1 to the left. As a result, equilibrium will move from E to E1, where quantity of imports will decrease from Q to Q1. Price will increase from P to P1. So now imported goods are more expensive and volume of import has decreased. So there is decrease in volume of import, so balance of payment may be corrected. And we have a little technical graph of tariff as well. So it's not compulsory to make that technical graph, but if you know that, you can make that. Otherwise, the simple graph that I have made earlier is sufficient. So I'm making this diagram. If you wish to like make this, then like you can watch this part. Otherwise, you can move to rest part of this video. So we have price on Y and quantity on X, and this is like demand of domestically produced goods, and this is supply of domestically produced goods. Means demand of goods that are produced within the country, and this is supply of goods that are produced within the country. So these are demand for imports and exports within the country. So equilibrium of locally produced goods is taking place at Q, where quantity of domestically produced goods that is traded in the market is Q and price is P. Right. So now if the price of imported goods is lesser than the domestically produced goods, let's say this is the price of imported goods P1, and this is like foreign supply curve of imported goods, then at price P1 domestic suppliers will be willing to supply QS quantity, but the domestic consumers, main consumers of the local economy, will be willing to demand QD quantity of goods and services. Since local producers are providing less but consumers are demanding more, so there will be a gap between demand and supply from QS to QD, and this gap will be filled with imports, right? So the gap can also be identified from point A to B between the demand and supply as well. And this high volume of imports from QS to QD can lead to deficit in current account of balance of payment. So now to make these imported goods expensive, government may fix tariff, and when government imposes tariff, price of imported goods will increase from P1 to P1 plus T, mean P1 plus tariff. So as a result, now domestic suppliers are a little willing to supply more, and at the same time demand for goods will also decrease. So new demand is now Q1, let's say, but the new supply of locally produced goods is Q2. So now the gap between Q1 and Q2 represents the volume of imports. Because shortage has now decreased from C to D, this shortage will be filled with the imported goods. Initially imports were this much, that is huge, but subsequently imports have decreased to this much. So when imports fall, balance of payment may be corrected. So this is a little technical graph, but if you make this graph, then still you can get full marks. And the other method of protectionism apart from the tariff will be quota. Quota is the physical limitation on quantity of goods that can be imported to a country. So if government wants to cut down the volume of imports, then government may limit the quota, reduce the quantity of a product that can be imported into the country. So volume of imports will decrease and current account deficit may be corrected. And then we have another, although this is the extreme situation when government sets embargo, right? So EMBARGO, embargo. This is kind of 100% ban on imports, right? So if government stops people from importing goods from other countries, then it is called ban. It is also known as zero quota, when you cannot buy even a single quantity of a product as well. So it also controls balance of payment deficit. And the other method that government can use is red tape. Red tape is a method where government increases the complications regarding documentation and procedure of importing goods from other countries. So as a result, people are discouraged to buy goods from other countries. So red tape increases complications and reduces volume of imports that can correct deficit balance of payment again. Okay, so these are the policies that government can use to correct deficit balance of payment, and that are the part of expenditure switching policies, and further subcategory is protectionism. So you can explain any two of these, 4 things that I have explained here, tariff, quota, embargo and red tape. You can explain any 2 of them. You need not to explain all of them. And you have to now move to the other policy apart from the protectionism. Another policy that we have to correct, the balance of payment deficit, is devaluation of currency, right? If we devalue the currency, again this can also help to correct the deficit balance of payment. So devaluation is when government itself reduces the value of currency against another currencies against other currencies, and it is done through the foreign exchange reserves, using foreign currency reserves. Devaluation makes exports cheaper, so price of exports falls whenever there is devaluation of currency, while price of imports will rise. I'm using Px for price of exports and Pm for price of imports. When price of exports are lower, then demand for exports will rise, so quantity demand for exports will rise, and total revenue from exports may increase also if the demand is elastic. On the other hand, if price of import rises, then demand for imports will fall because they are expensive now, less people will be willing to buy them. So as a result, total expenditure on imports will fall. So when total revenue from exports is high, total expenditure on imports is low, that will help to correct balance of payment deficit. So balance of payment deficit will be corrected, right? So you can incorporate Marshall-Lerner condition as well, or you can make the diagram of J curve as well. And if I keep including that, then answer will become huge and you are not required to write that much. And the third part is evaluation, assessment objective 3. Now you have to talk against these policies, right? So policies, what policies? Policies of protectionism and devaluation of currency. So you have to talk against, you have to give limitations of these policies. You can say that if government imposes tariff on imported goods, then the other trading partner country may retaliate, and it may also impose tariff quota and embargo on our products. So as a result, our exports will decrease and current account deficit may not be corrected, rather it may further go to deficit. So retaliation is very, very important thing that make these policies totally ineffective. And another thing was devaluation of currency, and whenever we devalue the currency and other currencies also follow the same pattern, they also devalue the currency more than the devaluation that we did in our currency, then definitely it will then devaluation that we did will not be that much effective. Because our exports will not become cheaper than the comparative countries and imports may not become expensive. And after talking against these policies, you have to give a final conclusion as well. And in final conclusion, you can say that expenditure switching policies are the good ways to correct deficit balance of payment. However, these policies are not always effective to achieve this objective, since retaliation is really important concept and a problem that may arise because of using these policies. So you can see the entire discussion on the screen. You can take screenshot and you can copy this mind mapping, and you can use this mind mapping to answer your questions. And one more thing that you can write in the conclusion part is devaluation of currency will not be beneficial if demand for exports and imports is inelastic, right? So it means when demand is inelastic, fall in price of exports will not increase demand for exports as much as the price decreases, so total revenue will decrease. And rise in import prices will decrease demand for imports, but a little bit. So as a result, total expenditure on imports will rise. So as a evaluation part or conclusive part, you can use this explanation as well. So if demand is inelastic, then devaluation of currency will not help to correct deficit balance of payment. So this is a complete answer. You can follow it and you can write the answer, complete answer. If you wish, you can share your answer with me and I'll give you the comment on that. So see you in the next lesson soon, inshallah. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.